Elce Lauriston is a former Seventh-Day Adventist. He was an evangelist and a pastor in training at Northern Caribbean University in Mandeville, Jamaica, when he uncovered information that informed him that the SDA Church is a cult teaching dangerous false doctrines. Of course, that is his opinion, and I respect his right to hold it. He has a YouTube channel that he describes as anti-adventist, where he pushes out videos on Friday nights, or at least that is what I have observed over the past few weeks. Now, over a 4-week period, he did some videos charging the SDA Church is teaching some false doctrines about the law, in particular the Ten Commandments. I have decided to do a 5-part video series responding to each of those videos. But why a 5-part series to respond to 4 videos? The answer is I'm beginning with this video, which is an introduction to the series. These are the false teachings he is claiming the SDA Church is presenting about the law. 1. The Ten Commandments are distinct and separate from the law of Moses. 2. The Ten Commandments were written with the finger of God, meaning God wrote them and not Moses. 3. The Ten Commandments are a transcript of God's character. And 4. The Ten Commandments are a summation of love. You will see in my rebuttals that his titles are slightly different from what I stated here, in that he uses the definite article. I will get into that soon. I begin with a clip from the 4th video to uncover his general strategy.
Interestingly, the 2 commands Jesus quotes to refer to as what summarize the entire law and the prophets are not from the Ten Commandments. They are from Deuteronomy chapter 6 and Leviticus chapter 19. In Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 4, it says, "Hear ye, O Israel, the Lord our God is one Lord. And you should love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, and with all your might." And then Leviticus chapter 19 now, 31 I think says, "Love your neighbor as yourself." And so they get it completely twisted. Jesus is referring to the entire law and prophets as what depends on love. They throw all of that out and say only the 10 Commandments are what love fulfills.
I have been a Seventh-Day Adventist since September 25, 1983, and I have never once heard any pastor, lay preacher, elder, Sabbath school teacher, or Bible class instructor say that only the 10 Commandments are what love fulfills. Never once. And I am pretty confident that my Adventist brethren will concur that they themselves have never heard it. Nor do they believe that the 10 Commandments and only, operative word, only the 10 Commandments are what love fulfills. That's a fabrication on his part. So what does he do? He exaggerates what the church teaches, attacks his own exaggeration, and proves it false as it obviously is, then beats his chest that he demonstrated that SDA doctrine false. That is not SDA doctrine. That's a product created in the mind of Elce Lauriston and distributed on social media to his adoring fans. I give you my first reason for beginning with this introduction before responding to the points he raised in those 4 videos. I posted this comment on his video about the summation of love. Here's what I find amazing, my brother, about the amount of time and energy you expend on these subjects. What danger is posed to my salvation in believing that 1, the 10 Commandments are distinct from the law of Moses. 2, they were written by God. 3, they are a transcript of God's character. And 4, they are a summation of love. What is the danger to the salvation of Seventh-Day Adventists in believing these truths? And even if they are not true, what is the danger in believing so? Do you suppose that on that day Christ is going to say, "Depart from me, because you obeyed the Ten Commandments and believed they are God's eternal laws, a transcript of God's character and a summation of love"? I have listened extensively to Dale Ratzlaff and less to you, and you cannot make sense to me on the subject of the law. You spend a lot of time making intellectual arguments that have zero impact on the practicality of obeying God's law. It is like spending 4 weeks with a dinner fork trying to pull down the Cornwall Regional Hospital. I chose a building at random that is not a fraction as solid as the law of God. You both claim the SDA Church teaches things I have never once heard from any SDA pastor, elder, Sabbath school teacher, lay preacher, etc. Ratzlaff and Pastor Baldwin, for example, seem to imply that Adventists look to the law for salvation. If I had $1,000 for every time I heard an SDA speaker stressing that the law cannot save us, I would be sitting pretty. Yet, these ex-SDA speakers are on a mission to tell Adventists the very same thing that the church is teaching us. Crazy. I also hear about the SDA gospel is not the true gospel. I don't know what the SDA gospel is outside of the gospel of the Bible, that Jesus came to save us from sin. That would be the executive summary of the SDA gospel as I know it. So thank you, ex-Adventists, for confirming my faith. Elce responded, "You spend your time and energy on the Watchtower. I do so on Adventism. You do you, I do me. You think persons in that false system need help to escape that cult. I think the same of Adventism. Jehovah's Witnesses are helped through your efforts. SDAs and Christians are helped through mine. Everything else you've mentioned and asked about are thoroughly documented in the upcoming volumes. If you are serious about the questions getting answered and dangers involved, you'll have my thorough explanations and documentations in them. The confirming of your faith in Adventism is inconsequential to me. I don't have hope that the likes of you can ever be undeceived unless through a miracle of God. But your inveterate stance for Adventism will not stop me from producing materials that will help God's benighted children escape the clutches of the Adventist cult. Those who belong to Him will benefit from my efforts, while the likes of you will vainly yap like mongrels." No, that was rich. I would have hoped my brother would have been gracious enough to compare me to a German Shepherd or maybe a poodle, but mongrel. Anyhow, jokes aside, in his mind, those who are not moved by his propaganda are compared to dogs. Those who will be taught by Elce are considered God's benighted children. And that is what I want to first address. This is my second time publicly engaging with my brother. He sent me a PDF of a book he wrote claiming Jesus is the Sabbath and all meats are clean. I called him out on some points he raised in his book as nonsensical. The end result? I was blocked from communicating with him on Facebook. Apparently, he wants a platform where he can spread his message unchallenged, and he seems to view those who disagree with him as the enemy or something like that, at the very least, like mongrels. He tends to love the phrase, "the likes of you," with a pretty condescending tone, or that's what I get. Here's a section of another response I was to get from him a few weeks ago in my comments on another of his videos. I was logged in to YouTube under my Watchtower Examination account. Watchtower Examination? So many of you SDA apologists seem to be dyslexic. Shake my head. So, reason number one for posting this introduction is my first message to Thunder. My brother, please get down off that high horse. Humble yourself. Stop being so condescending of people who challenge you. I am not dyslexic. I understood your speech, and I will be demonstrating in the coming days or weeks that what you presented is false. I asked you a simple question publicly. Rather than answering, you are inviting me to read your upcoming volumes where you claim you thoroughly answered. Would you mean like how you thoroughly answered in those 4 videos that proved baseless, as I will demonstrate? In the meantime, try and be a little bit more respectful of others. I'm going to take it in good strides that you are not dog racist, unlike me, and that you see all dogs as created equal, respecting mongrels as you do German shepherds and poodles. I will also thank you for comparing me with man's best friend, because that is what I want to be, your friend who engages you on the points you raised. I am not here to attack your person, but to have dialogue with you on the theological issues. So be done with the personal insults, please. Which brings me to the second reason I am beginning with this introduction. And I'm afraid that my Adventist brethren may not enjoy this part too much, but it will be said anyhow. I mentioned that you ex-Adventists have strengthened my faith immediately after describing the gospel, meaning my faith in the gospel that Jesus came to save me from sin. You misunderstood me to be speaking about my faith in Adventism. Let that be a demonstration to you, my brother, that you are capable of jumping to false conclusions based on your bias. Wrong, my brother. I have no faith in Adventism. I have faith in God. I am not your typical Seventh-Day Adventist. So you can safely drop that "the likes of you" bit. Allow me to present what is going on from a judicial perspective. Imagine the SDA Church is a defendant charged with many counts of teaching false doctrines. You may consider yourself an attorney for the prosecution, and you may view persons like my beloved brother, Derek Gillespie, who has challenged you as well, as counsel for the defense. I am not one of the defense lawyers. I gladly accepted jury duty. I'm here looking on the evidence presented by the evidence and the prosecution and calling a verdict. So far, however, I have not even heard any of the lawyers for the defense speak. Your own case, after you rested it, my brother, fell flat. You failed to present any reasonable cause for doubt that the defendant is not innocent. The challenge that I have is that I am a Seventh-Day Adventist and therefore will be deemed a biased juror. So now I present my case why you can count on me to be fair and unbiased, even though I am currently a Seventh-Day Adventist. I have a history. For a few decades, I believed in tithing. I saw what the SDA Church teaches on the subject as the truth, strongly supported by the scriptures. 10 minutes, my brother, 10 minutes was all it took to erase that belief. How so? I watched a video from the Unlearn the Lies YouTube channel. I placed a link in the description, where the author presented a simple, clear-cut, Bible-based rebuttal of the tithing doctrine that not one Adventist had been able to refute. I gave Brother Gillespie credit for being the only Adventist who even tried. I publicly stated an intention to disassociate from the SDA Church, which did not happen, by the way, on account of the loving way my church handled the situation, including my pastor. So I am still a Seventh-Day Adventist while we seek to talk the matter over. The point is, I am not afraid or shy to call out the church where it teaches falsely. I am no SDA apologist, certainly not that kind. I go with the scriptures. Allow me to share a little bit more in my attempt to convince the court that I am indeed an impartial juror, in spite of my membership in the SDA Church. When Dr. Andre Hill appeared on the program Religious Hard Talk with the late Ian Boyne, he presented what appeared to be very damning evidence against Mrs. Ellen G. White, and I was convinced. I couldn't wait for Sabbath to come to hear how the church would respond. Well, I was not the least bit impressed as I sat in the Mandeville SDA Church and heard an elder class the brother as a so-called Adventist. I was not interested in any attack on the messenger. I wanted to hear the message refuted, which the elder refused to do. So up to that point, I believed Dr. Hill, and I was about to declare Mrs. White guilty as charged. That would have been my verdict before Micah 6, verse 8 came to mind. He hath showed thee, O man, what is good, and what doth the Lord require of thee? But to do justly, and to love mercy, and to walk humbly with thy God. To do justly. To do justly would be to hear the case of the defense before calling a verdict. While my local church did not respond to Dr. Hill, one Francis D. Nichol, mentioned in the program by Dr. Hill himself, did put up a strong defense. I read his book, Ellen G. White and Her Critics, after which I called the verdict not guilty. I'll go one further. When you yourself, Elce, appeared on Religious Hard Talk, I was now back in Montego Bay, and I said to Elder Dion Gordon, you can verify with him, that I respect your move, that it must have taken a lot of courage, strength, and conviction to reject what you once believed, knowing fully well that tens of thousands, probably hundreds of thousands of persons who were fans of yours would be disappointed in you, maybe even turn against you, some of them. I wanted to hear what you have learned. But when I watched the show, you presented nothing of consequence to move the needle. I'll go one further in my final attempt to demonstrate to you that I am capable of being an unbiased juror and that I'm committed to that position, because this is important. There is a good friend of mine, also an ex-Adventist and an ex-Jehovah's Witness from Nigeria, I think, who is a subscriber to your channel, Timothy Nyaga. He presented to me some information on the little horn that I am looking into, and I can tell you this much. So far, the SDA position is looking stronger than what Timothy presented, but I am not quite finished. But here's the point. What Timothy presented seems far more plausible, even with its weaknesses, than all the arguments you presented over the past 4 weeks. What Dr. Hill presented appeared more credible, even if successfully rebutted in the eyes of this juror, than what you have presented in the past 4 weeks. Unlike the Unlearn the Lies channel, that proved beyond a shadow of a doubt that the tithing doctrine, as taught by the SDA Church and others, is false. Your case against the law fell flat, empty, baseless, weak, pathetic, false, as I will be demonstrating in the upcoming videos. Exaggerating SDA beliefs and then proving your own exaggerations false is going nowhere with this juror. This impartial juror will be demonstrating why, after carefully examining your line of arguments, I call the verdict not guilty. And I will demonstrate again how correct the church is on the subject and how absolutely baseless your arguments are. Allow me to close with this point. First, the devil launched an attack on the Sabbath, trying to dig it out of the Ten Commandments. That ain't working. So now he's decided, you know what? Let's just get rid of the entire Ten Commandments and be done with it. And sadly, my brother, it is my humble opinion that you are allowing yourself to be used in that futile crusade against the perfect, holy, just, eternal law of God. After you and I are gone from the scene, if we don't live to see the coming of Christ, others will walk in your shoe. But at the end of it all, God's law, yes, I speak specifically of the Ten Commandments, they will still be standing, unmoved, because they cannot be moved. Your attempts, however valiant, can never succeed. I'm using the same backdrop I use for my Watchtower examination channel because it applies in this would-be court. Your arguments in this case are weighed in the balance and you are found lacking, as the New World Translation puts it. You and I know the King James Version says, found wanting. I can't wait to complete my responses, to do those videos. In the end, my brother, I hope you can see me as man's best friend and not his enemy. Talk to you in the next one. Love you. Peace.
May the grace of the Lord Jesus Christ and the love of God and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit be with you all.